Right. I am carrying extra weight.
Anyone who brings candy into this camp is not your friend.
No, man, that's not it.
No dinner, no lunch, no breakfast.
Looks like my man's packing.
Who would like to own up to this treasure trove?
My grandma runs faster than you, and she's only got one leg.
Oh, look! A deli meat.
I eat success for breakfast.
With skim milk.
You disgust me.
Well, congratulations. You just joined the 76% of Americans who forget to stretch before physical activity.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. It's like the origin story for a supervillain. Look at what they did to RFK. RFK was on his way back from the UFC. He was with President Trump there, flying on the plane, getting McDonald's. Now, President Trump offered us McDonald's at this very table about a year and a half ago when we flew on his plane to a campaign rally. It was freaking awesome. You get on the plane, let me explain this. You get on the campaign plane, and you smell McDonald's, and not just like, oh, I smell a French fry. You smell like an actual McDonald's. Like it smells like there's a McDonald's inside of the plane. Now, there isn't, but there is a wall of McDonald's bags that the stewardess is ready to serve you on a golden platter, and that is exactly what happened to RFK. Look at him. He is in pain. Of course, McDonald's is made from what some people call food, more like plastic, and RFK is getting trolled by Trump, who's loving it, literally loving it. RFK is not. The most seed oils RFK has ever eaten. But that didn't stop RFK from getting ready for his confirmation hearing. Guy's freaking 71, okay? He's 71. He's just in better shape than most people I know in their 30s. And that's commendable. And good for RFK. So what happens next? RFK gets the poisons out of our food. This is something that he promised to do. He said that we need to love our children more than we hate each other in this country. It's a great line, and he's now delivering. Everybody's asking for results. Well, here you go. RFK Jr.'s FDA announces that it is stripping out toxic soup from food dyes, U.S. supply, in a massive shakeup. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary announced that the agency will phase out the use of 8 artificial food dyes in America's food supply within the next 2 years. The massive shakeup will free children from the toxic soup that makes up much of America's food supply. Dr. Makary, a trained surgeon, began his remarks by calling attention to the oft-cited review in the Lancet that reported ties between artificial food dyes and hyperactivity in children. I know this. If you give my oldest daughter, who's pretty hyperactive, red dye number 40, she goes berserker mode. She just goes crazy. We've seen it before. So why are we taking a gamble, Makary says? The Trump administration will set a plan for food companies to follow the order adequately and phase out red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, blue 2, green 3 by the end of 2026 and start using natural alternatives. This is regular in my household. You get these gummy bears or these little gummies that are flavored and dyed naturally. And those exist. You can totally do this. You use like various beetroots and vegetables and stuff like that. It doesn't taste like a vegetable. It tastes like a candy. It just doesn't have that like neon, right? Like chemical look to it. And that's because they're all chemicals. But they're delicious. My kids love them. There's nothing wrong with this. And why take, I love it. Why take the risk? The latest proposal revokes approval for 2 dyes, citrus red and orange B, that are not as common. RFK Jr. suggested more additives could be next, telling the crowd, we're going to get rid of the dyes and we're going to get rid of every ingredient or additive in food that we can legally address. And for those ingredients we can't legally ban, we're going to start informing Americans about what they are eating. You are eating slop. Red food dye found in Doritos, Skittles, and Pepsi can trigger inflammatory bowel disease. The plan also initiates a collaboration with the NIH to research how food dyes impact children's health and development. Okay, let's go. Breaking. Federal judge says that food companies must keep putting artificial poisons into our food. Democrats begin chugging artificial food dyes to protest RFK. Here's Marty Makary describing exactly what he's doing today.
Today, the FDA is taking action to remove petroleum-based food dyes from the U.S. food supply and from medications. For the last 50 years, American children have increasingly been living in a toxic soup of synthetic chemicals. The scientific community has conducted a number of studies raising concerns about the correlation between petroleum-based synthetic dyes and several health conditions, such as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obesity, diabetes, insulin resistance, cancer, genomic disruption, GI issues, as I've seen in the hospital, and allergic reactions. For example, this Lancet study conducted a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled study on food dyes and concluded that artificial colors in the diet, quote, result in increased hyperactivity. So why are we taking a gamble?
Effective immediately, artificial dyes are being phased out of all food products. The administration is not interested in doing the same old thing, watching our children get sick. Children are incredibly sick. RFK saying we're spending as much on mitochondrial disorders like diabetes as we are on our military budget. We cannot exist like this. It was making us sick.
We are spending as much on mitochondrial disorders like diabetes as we spend on our military budget. We can't continue to exist like this. And the problem is industry is making money on keeping us sick. As Jay pointed out, ADHD is associated with all these behavioral disorders. But those disorders are treated not by changing our diet, but providing medications to treat our kids. And they get medicated, and that's the only solution. And, I would point out that there is part of the etiology of these diseases is a kind of media malpractice, a mass psychosis that has our media not talking about this. And one of the possible reasons for that is the amount of money that's coming from the pharmaceutical companies into our media and from these food companies, where the advertising the advertising has at least plays a factor. So that revenue, the extraordinary revenue stream, in disabling their capacity or their inclination for skepticism and for critical thinking. So Americans don't know what they're eating, and they don't know the implications of those things.
RFK's entire speech is spectacular. I encourage you to go back and watch the whole thing. It's a full 10-minute speech. Also, we await RFK's fat camps, crane to lower the fatties in, pond for drinking water, Stairmaster, fat camp, wall with human-sized openings. RFK did this, actually. He roasted a governor to his face who's a little overweight, Governor Morrissey of West Virginia, and bring it back. This is old school. RFK is making actual change, and it's a wonderful thing to see. It's something that he explained perfectly in this video that I think is still the single most powerful video ever put out by an American politician, explaining and zeroing in on a single problem and making it something that you could really have a force majeure on, right? You could actually change something here. And RFK is doing it. What a wonderful thing to see. He said he's prayed to God for this moment in his life, and, well, here it is.
This is what most Americans innocently put into their bodies these days, and most alarmingly, into the bodies of their children. And it's no coincidence that Americans die earlier than Canadians or Germans or Italians or Japanese or Koreans or Australians or most any other comparable country. And it wasn't always that way. Until the early 1990s, our life expectancy was the same or better than other developed countries. Then suddenly, more and more Americans began suffering from chronic diseases, from obesity, cancer, diabetes, kidney disease, Alzheimer's, heart disease, and all kinds of autoimmune diseases. Our maternal mortality rate soared to the highest of any developed country on earth. Same with infant mortality. Like the frog in the slowly boiling water, we didn't really notice as we got sicker and sicker. We've grown now to accept chronic disease conditions as normal. But now, in 2024, we're finally waking up to this cataclysm, and we're asking ourselves, how in the world did this happen? A big part of it is our diet. Restaurants that serve contaminated food are fined or shut down. But when it's the government that approves the poisons in our food, a few people get very, very rich, and the toxins end up in every supermarket aisle. Let me show you what I mean. Doritos, Cheez-Its, Cap'n Crunch, gummy bears. Everyone knows that these are junk foods, so maybe you wouldn't be too surprised to see that the ingredients include a lot of poisons, including a harmful yellow dye called tatrazine, or yellow dye number 5. What you may not know is that this dye was originally made out of the sludge that's left over when you turn coal into coke for blast furnaces. It's called coal tar, and I've actually sued many big industries for legacy contamination of coal tar all around the country because it's so toxic and it's so harmful to the environment and human beings. A century ago, it was just an obnoxious industrial byproduct that everybody was trying to figure out ways to get rid of. One of the ways that they did that was by paving roads. But then a British chemist figured out that the coal tar could be used to derive fabric dye. And if fabric dye, why not food? Food manufacturers began using it to cover up the discoloration of low-quality foods that they wanted to pass off on unsuspecting customers. They didn't know back then that this yellow dye, tartrazine, causes tumors, asthma, developmental delays, neurological damage, ADD, ADHD, hormone disruption, gene damage, anxiety, depression, intestinal injuries. Well, we know it now. We've known this for decades. That's why tartrazine is heavily restricted in other countries. In some countries, foods with tartrazine have a warning label that it may cause ADHD in children. Today, it's made from petroleum, not coal tar. Either way, it's crazy to add this to your kids' favorite foods. It doesn't even change the flavor. This yellow dye isn't just in junk food. It's in the foods that we consider healthy. It's in everyday kids' snacks like popcorn, mac and cheese, fruit snacks. It's in sports drinks like Gatorade and so-called vitamin water. It's even added to chicken broth, to corn, to pickles, to mustard, and to yogurt. And so, of course, our kids get sick. And we lovingly feed them chewable vitamins which have, surprise, tartrazine. And so the cycle continues until the coughs and asthma kick in, at which point you go to pick up some cough syrup. And yeah, you guessed it, tartrazine. I've been picking on tartrazine today, but that's just one of at least 100 chemical poisons that our health agencies allow into our children's food. I can make a video just like this to talk about Red 40, BHA, BHD, potassium bromate, chemical after chemical, and on and on and on. If just one of them can cause all of these problems, imagine what they're doing in combination. That has never been studied. If we took all of these chemicals out, our nation would get healthier immediately. We'd have fewer sick days. We'd have better focus. We'd have less anxiety. Our kids would learn more easily. We'd lose weight. We'd have more energy. We'd have fewer tumors and longer lives. It's not all dark. Over the past 16 years, the government has banned 8 chemical additives that cause cancer, genetic damage, asthma, and many of the other health conditions as tartrazine does. And you know what's interesting? All 8 of those crucial steps forward in our kids' health were taken under President Trump. But the Democrats who claim to be all about health care have stood by watching other countries ban these poisons and make our kids sick, asthmatic, hyperactive, and depressed. They left them on every supermarket shelf in America. They even used your tax money to put them in your kids' school lunch. So their big food and their big ag donors probably gave them all that golden handshake and the big money hug. And their big pharma donors probably called them up and thanked them also, because now they're going to make billions selling Adderall, Prozac, and rescue inhalers. Enough is enough. President Trump and I are going to stop the mass poisoning of American children. Together, we're going to make America healthy again.